Hey, what's up guys and gals? It's the Tyrant here. Welcome back to my weekly Q&A session where you guys ask the questions and I give you the answers. It's been kind of a crazy week here, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But first of all, if you don't know how to submit questions and you want to, it's quite simple. All you have to do is ask your question in the comments section below, or you can hit me up on Twitter at MythicTyrant. A link to my Twitter feed can be found in the description below, and of course I'll select usually about 10 questions or so for the following week from that selection. Usually how these things plays out is I'll go ahead and go through the questions first, then I'll take a few minutes afterwards to talk about something that has a deep meaning to me or something that's very important to me. And you'll be happy to know that this week I'm not spending that time talking about my Patreon site, much to your relief, I'm sure. It's in regards to the Vegas shooting. And, you know, I know a lot of you don't want to hear about it, and that's fine, which is why I'm saving it for after the Q&A. So if you don't want to tune into it, by all means, you don't have to. But it's something I do encourage you to listen in on, and I hope that you will. So our first question of the week comes from Spencer, and Spencer asked, so if you do end up having to shut down the website, then what are you going to do? So what Spencer, he asked this on Twitter, by the way, and so last night I went on a little bit of a tirade, and I do apologize for that, regarding the whole YouTube situation. And, you know, even though I'm sorry, I'm still not at the same time, because those are my real feelings. You know, I wake up angry, I go to bed angry, and this is a fairly new development for me. I'm still trying to grasp the concept. It's only been going on for about a month now, and now I'm scared that I'm not going to be able to continue this throughout next year unless I'm able to raise enough money if YouTube isn't willing to fix their problems. And what he's referring to is, I said that one of the things that I might consider next year is, if I do indeed retire, turning all the videos to private so that they're demonetized. And the reason I thought about that is because to this day, you know, Google, I'm sure anyone who's experimented with YouTube or who does have a YouTube channel understands that if you're making money off of it, Google takes almost half of your earnings right off the top, and that makes me mad. It makes me mad to think that if I retire from this channel that Google's going to continue to profit off of me. And you know, granted, I still make money too, but then I have to worry about the tax issue. You know, I don't know, again, how many of you know about this, but they don't take taxes out. So when you do taxes every year here in the States, you have to pay taxes. And so if I ended up with another full-time job, I'm not really sure I'd want to have to do that as well. And, you know, I'm not set in stone on that yet. It's really not something I want to do. Like I always said, I'm not going to delete the channel, plain and simple. What I'm going to do after, if I decide to retire the site next year, if I have no other alternative, I'm still not entirely sure yet. I hope it doesn't go that route. Personally, I'd love to see this channel hit 1,000 videos. I think that would be amazing. And so it's just something I'll play by ear. So try not to look into that too much. Again, it's just a moment of anger that I had, and I'm sorry that I took it out on my community, or at least implied that anyway. So, you know, no one here is to blame. I didn't blame anybody, but I don't want anyone thinking that it's your fault or anything like that. It's just, it's going to be what it's going to be. And it's a bridge that I'll cross when I get to it. Hopefully I could raise enough money through Patreon, or we have a new merchandise store that we're opening tonight. And I'll put a link to that in the description below too. You can get t-shirts and all that stuff. And who knows, you know, maybe it'll turn out okay. And I hope it does. And I appreciate everyone here who supported me for it. And so thank you. Thank each and every one of you who's here, especially for my Q&As. You guys are an excellent audience, and it's one of the reasons I look forward to doing these videos every week. So that was a good question, Spencer, and thank you. Our next question comes from Mark Cicolella. And Mark asks, if Halo 6 story was arc-centric, how would you want it to play out if the Flood return and survive Halo Wars 2 and Halo 6? You know, it's interesting. So it's been theorized before that the next major Halo installment could be arc-centric because a lot of the games from the Reclaimer saga mirror those from the original trilogy. You know, Halo 4 in a lot of ways, and I can do a comparison video later, really does mirror a lot of things that Combat Evolved did. Halo 5 mirrors a lot of things that Halo 2 did. Again, whether you like those games or not, it is true. And so now, of course, Halo 6, or whatever the next major installment is going to be titled, is going to we're expecting it, or at least we're predicting in some way that it's going to somehow mirror Halo 3 in some way, shape, or form. Not sure how that's going to happen. In terms of my own scenario, I would love to see the Flood return for a first-person shooter. Hidden Xperia, I think it's Late Night Gaming. It's Late Night Gaming who said that he believes that 343 is trying to purge the Flood just because they're overly violent. They're trying to get the game rating down so that more people can access it. I don't believe that personally. I think that they're trying to reintroduce the Flood because people have not been very accepting of the Promethean concept. And I think it would be really cool if we could fight some of the new units that we saw in Halo Wars 2, Awakening of the Nightmare, such as the Flood Abomination. I think that it's a cool way to incorporate the old Juggernaut model that was canceled from Halo 2, and it would make a great mini-boss. So that's my personal hope. I don't really know of any details that I haven't said in the past. If you want to know how I think Halo 6 should play out, I've got a ton of videos on this site for it. Definitely check out my Halo the Rise and Fall series. Part 7 in particular does cover that aspect of it, of what I'm hoping for from Halo 6. So that's a great question, Mark, and it's always good to hear from you, buddy. Our next question comes from Luke Skywalker II. And Luke asks, do you think that Halo could or should end how it started with the Halo array firing, wiping out all sentient life in the galaxy, just like it did before? P.S. I love your videos. Keep up the iconic work. I appreciate that, Luke. Thank you for the kind words. No, I don't think it should do that. That's a pretty bleak ending for a long-running series like Halo. I think it was an event that happened once. People have theorized about time travel and an infinite loop cycle, and I think that's probably looking at it a little too deep. We've mentioned in videos before where I think the Master Chief might eventually sacrifice himself to save Cortana, to save humanity, and people backlashed on that. They're like, no one's going to take that shit. And so if they're not going to take that, I most definitely don't think they're going to take killing everything in the galaxy. I've heard the theory before. It's an interesting one, but I don't think it's one they'll implement. But that's still a good question, Luke. Thank you. Our next question comes from Claude Assassin. And Claude asks, do you think in order to get classic Halo, we should get a non-canon spinoff? So first of all, I want to take a second to thank Claude Assassin. He was there for all my live streams for Awakening of the Nightmare, and I'm not really used to doing puzzles in RTS games, and he knew them. And so thank you, Claude, for helping me out with those. To answer your question, I don't think it really matters if it's canon or not canon. I don't think we're going backwards. I think that we're going to continuously move forwards. I think if you want a classic style, the best you can hope for is a playlist, like the current Halo 3 playlist and Halo 5 Guardians. That might be the only way you get a real classic game, because people don't want to see Halo turn into Call of Duty. They don't want to see, the same thing with a fresh coat of paint over and over again. Every Halo game has been different in one form or another. So I think the word classic Halo means something different to everybody. And I think the best you can hope for in that area is maybe just a throwback to the original trilogy. Because even Halo Reach, if you're talking about Bungie Halo games, was very different from anything we had seen prior to that. So I think that we're going to continue to move forward, and that we might have playlists dedicated to certain play styles. So I hope that answers your question, Claude. And again, thank you for all your help with the puzzles and Awakening the Nightmare, my friend. Our next question comes from Shane Howard. And Shane asked, who would win the Halo 3 ODST, or what would win the Halo 3 ODST SMG or the Halo 3 SMG? Hands down, ODST. First of all, you can zoom in with it, and also it has a silencer. It also seems to have better range to it, and it's highly effective against drones. So, hands down, again, short answer for you, but definitely the silenced SMG. So, good question, Shane. Thank you. Our next question comes from K27R. And K2 asks, do you think 343 will make campaign DLC, extra missions, and complete epic story for Halo 5? Is it possible, and what are the chances of it being produced and accepted? This is a good question. We've gotten a lot of good questions this week. My answer for you, K2, is I don't really think so. It doesn't seem like it's something that would fit their platform. Halo 5 has gotten mixed results. And I'm pretty sure they just want to start focusing on the next major Halo installment just so they can close off the series. The only way I could think of that they would possibly go that route is if for whatever reason, maybe budgetary reasons or whatever, they had to cancel Halo 6, in which case, just to appease the fan base in some way, shape, or form, just so that Halo isn't left on a sour note, they would have to close off the story somehow, even if it's addressed in a way that you wouldn't expect, even if it's quicker than you might think. So maybe that would happen. I certainly think they did a great job with Awakening the Nightmare. I thought, you know, that Halo Wars 2 already had it was an okay story, but Awakening the Nightmare really made it an excellent story. So even with an expansion, they can improve on the story elements of Halo 5, as much as most of us do not like the story. They made a lot of other right choices, in my opinion, in game mechanics. So I guess that's a way they could correct the story problem, but I just don't see it happening. It's an interesting idea, though, K2, and thank you. That's a great question. Our next question comes from Quinn O'Brien. And Quinn asked, Tyrant, what's your favorite gun in Halo CE? Honestly, and technically this is only for the PC version, but the fuel rod gun. I thought it was a great gun. It's one of my favorite guns in the entire Halo series. I was disappointed that in Halo 2 onward they made it more like a Covenant rocket launcher instead of the mortar gun that it was in Halo 2, or in the original Halo game. And I was great with it. I'd always get the fuel rod gun in Blood Gulch, and maybe this isn't the best use for it, but in Capture the Flag, I'd always hide in the base and wait for an enemy to approach and just hose them down with fuel rods. They just never saw it coming and had no real way to counter it. So I've got a lot of fond memories of that. And tell me what your favorite weapon is, Quinn. Great question. Our next question comes from Austin K. Always good to see you, Austin. And Austin asks, what would your thoughts be if 343 decided to make a non-Halo game? Do you think it'd be successful, and how do you think the community would receive it? This is a really good question. Man, you guys are really nailing it this week. So, first of all, they wouldn't. They just wouldn't. If Halo collapsed, 343 would probably dissolve. They were formed specifically to make Halo content. Having said that, that's what makes 343 so unique, because most developers out there do invest in multiple franchises. And even Bungie, you know, Halo wasn't their first rodeo, but for 343, that's all they have. You know, at least on the bright side, to answer your question about how the community would react to it, all I can say is, at least they can't really say, well, it was better back when Bungie did it, because it would be an original idea. I don't know how the community would react. I think there'd be a lot of backlash, because there's still a lot of people out there who do like the 343 games, and believe it or not, I am one of them. And they would rather see more Halo, just like people reacted with Bungie when they moved on to Destiny. So I don't think it's something we would ever see. I think it would get a mixed reaction from the community, and that's a great question, Austin. Always good to see you here, man. Our next question comes from Jaden Goldfinch. And Jaden asks, so do you think Halo 6 should have an optional section that allows you to pick between third or first person? How do you think this would affect gameplay? Thanks, dude. Always good to hear from you, Jaden. So here's the thing. I honestly don't believe that they should ever go that route. I've used third person before as a mod for Halo PC. And it's interesting for sure, but it just doesn't fit. And of course, you can get sort of a simulation of what third person would be like in campaign theater mode for Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, and Halo Reach. It's certainly interesting, and it does give you a new appreciation for the graphics, but it just doesn't fit what Halo is. I think if they ended up doing a third person Halo, that might be interesting, but switching interchangeably just doesn't seem to fit what Halo is and what it's been since the beginning. I think that's a change that's too radical. If you have people out there who already hate the concept of sprint, I can't imagine that going over well either. But that's still a great question, Jaden. I appreciate it. And our star question of the week comes from Maximum Rage Quit. That's how I've been feeling all week. And Maximum Rage Quit asks, do you think Halo 6 is going to be mediocre? So this is indeed an interesting question. You know, different Halo games mean different things to different people. I know Halo 5 didn't do that well in the ratings, but it's personally, to me, an improvement over Halo 4, which again, to me, was an improvement over Halo Reach. Again, you may not feel the same way, and that's perfectly fine. That is your right, your opinion. So I guess to different people, I think a lot of people are still going to have what I call step-parent syndrome. And what that essentially means is they're going to hate 343 no matter what, because they're a different parent. You're not my father, you're not my real father, or something along those lines, that type of mentality. I honestly think that we're going to get a great Halo game out of it. I don't think it's just going to be mediocre. I think that they're listening to the community. I think they're listening to both positive and negative feedback. I think that they've learned from a lot of mistakes. We've already seen this to a point. They already said they're not ditching split screen again. They're making sure that the next major Halo installment is Master Chief centric, so we don't have to worry about a split campaign with a character we know nothing about. And that right there already tells me that they've learned. And to me, even Halo 5 was a learning curve over 4. You know, they did a better job with the Prometheans. They nixed armor abilities, which I've been wanting them to do that since Reach. So in my eyes, even if you don't like the thruster pack, that was an improvement over armor abilities. They are making them better. They are learning from their mistakes. We saw, obviously, Firefight return to Halo 5. It's not the same Firefight that we saw on Reach or ODST, but at least it's something that's moving towards what we're eventually hoping that we'll get. I'm hoping that in Halo 6 we'll get both a classic Firefight mode in addition to Warzone Firefight. I think that they're learning as they go. I see a lot of hope. I see a lot of community reach out from 343 Industries, and they're listening. And I think that Halo 6 is definitely, probably, in my opinion, at least, definitely probably, kind of an oxymoron there. I think that Halo 6 is most likely going to be the all-star Halo game of the Reclaimer saga. And so I'm really looking forward to it. I'm trying not to set my expectations too high, because I want them to be reasonable, and I want to keep those expectations in check. But I am looking forward to it. I think they're going to make a great game. And I hope you guys think so too. Remember, keep cheering them on. Don't just throw random hate at them. Don't, throw random mud their way. Don't throw a lot of shade at them. Give them encouragement. Be there. Give them constructive criticism, because that's the only way they're going to listen. And I believe they are listening, and I'm trying to be a part of that movement as well. And I hope you'll join me on that movement as well. I hope you'll join me on that movement too. So that does conclude this week's Q&A, and so if you're done with the Q&A and you don't want to hear about the rest, now's the time to stop it. Of course, I'll give you a quick reminder, if you have questions that you want to submit, go ahead and put them in the comments below, or hit me up on Twitter at MythicTyrant. So this past week, I'm sure most of you know about it, or at least are aware, that we had a tragedy here in the United States, more specifically in Las Vegas, where a lone gunman managed to kill nearly 60 people and wound hundreds of others. And it's considered to be the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. And there's really nothing that I can say to make anyone feel better here. I know that we hear about the term thoughts and prayers and whatnot, and I just don't feel like that amounts. That really doesn't. It seems like that, whenever this happens, there's an outreach and, an outcry, and then eventually it dwindles down. And I do want to take a second to say that, I hope that if you were related to someone who was an unfortunate victim in that scenario, I hope that you are able to heal. And I hope that you are okay, or that you will be okay. And that's really the only words of sympathy I can really offer, because I just can't imagine what someone like that would go through. I hope that people are able to recover. And it's interesting, because it just made me think how this seems to continue to escalate as time goes on. A few years ago, it was an elementary school in Sandy Hook. And a few years before that, we had Columbine, and it's just, it seems to be a never-ending thing that happens here, and it's unfortunate. I'm not going to say anything about gun control. That's not really my place here on this site. This is a Halo community, and I know that you guys hate it when I talk about politics, which is why I try to keep it at a minimum. I've probably, out of 700 videos on this site, I've maybe less than 10 even mentioned politics, and even when I make a joke about politics, I try to keep it bipartisan so that, both sides can laugh together and no side feels victimized. This seems to be a rage that's been boiling for a long time, and it's everywhere. You know, whenever I read a news article online and I try to, again, read news and get my information across multiple spectrums because I don't like being in a bubble, I always look at the comment section, and it's a war zone. Every time, it's a war zone. Even if it's a non-political story, it turns into one in the comment section. And it's always one side criticizing this person, then all of a sudden this side is, you know, insert vulgar slur here. You know, it astounds me, and it's getting harder and harder to be able to differentiate those who are just trolling, you know, trying to enable outrage, and those who are just ignorant. And I find it genuinely terrifying. This past week, Jimmy Kimmel, for those of you who don't know, he's a late night talk show personality here in the United States, did a very touching monologue in response to the Vegas shootings, and so I commented on it, and it wasn't a political comment. It was just basically thanking Jimmy Kimmel for taking the time to do it, and I appreciated a voice of common sense and reason. There was no politics involved in it at all, but interestingly enough, this became a top comment on the video, and nearly every response I got, not all of them, but most of them were horrible. Just these politically biased, you know, trash talking, you know, comments. And I'm just sitting there going, why? Why is it that you choose to take something like this and bring it the worst of yourself? Is it really appropriate? And so after that, I decided to play a little game. I wanted to watch the most non-political videos I could find and look at the comment sections and see how long it took for me to find a political war breaking out between conservatives and liberals or whatever. And so the first video I watched was about sugar production. You know, sugar like you find in Kit Kat bars, and, you know, that you put in your coffee and stuff like that. And so I scrolled down through the comment section, and sure enough, about, you know, 20 or so comments into it. Took me a little longer than I thought. You know, someone made a comment about, you know, a particular politician, and then people lashed out at that person, and people again came back to return fire on those people. And it was insane, on a video about sugar. So then I watched another one about food waste in the United States. And again, scrolled down about, you know, 15, 20 comments down, boom, there it was. Someone made a random political comment, and just that took over the comment section. So then, after that, just to push the envelope a little bit, I watched a motherfucking Pizza Hut pasta video. Literally zero politics. You cannot, I mean, you have to be a literal genius to be able to somehow, or a satirist, whatever, to be able to twist that politically. And yet the second comment that I got to in the comment section of that video, it was a comedy video, by the way, was making political comments, and that turned into a huge, massive thing. And I just realized at that point how saturated with hate, not just America, but the entire world has become in recent years. More than we've seen in modern history. And it scares me a lot. You know, it's not just politics either. You know, even on this very site, if you have a different opinion than somebody else, then someone else will lash out at you for it. A few weeks ago, I did a video talking about my opinions on Halo 2 and Halo Reach. I got death threats on those opinions. Let me repeat that for you and let it sink in. People have told me to remove myself from this earth because my opinion is different than theirs on a video game. That's how bad it's gotten. You may not find a lot of politics on this site, but you'll sure as hell find a lot of hate. And, you know, it's sad too. You know, most of it's not you guys. I've got about 35,000 subscribers. I usually get a few 100,000 hits a month, so we have a lot of outsiders that come in. Of course, they're always welcome. But it's just amazing that even though we don't have politics, we can't escape from that kind of scrutiny. It almost makes me think, if I was forced to retire from doing this whole social media thing, would I really be missing anything, or would it be better for me? I keep thinking that maybe part of the reason we've seen a rise in this type of behavior is because of social media. People have this impression that they're always anonymous online, and so they can say and do whatever they want to, and that gives them permission to be jackasses, regardless of what political side you're on. Because we've seen hate from both sides. And we've seen decency from both sides, but we've seen so much more of the other. And that's what's depressing. And I keep wondering if maybe if I pulled myself away from that, maybe it would just make things better. Of course, that's the equivalent of giving up, and that's not something I want to do, especially to my community. And you know, I certainly would never be happy about leaving, but it does make me wonder if social media has sort of helped bring this to light. And it's scary to think that. And it's depressing at the same time. And it's something that I hope that we as a society and a species can come back from. Because I believe that we're greater than that. I believe that you, the person watching this video right now, is greater than that. This is typically the part in the video where I ask you to give me your thoughts and opinions about this week's subject in the comment section below. I'm not going to do that this week. I can't really offer a lot to the people who suffered in Vegas, or for the rest of the world for that matter. So to help honor them this week, since there's not much that I can do personally, here's what I'm going to ask of you guys. Stop the hate, at least for this one video. Instead of telling me your opinions about Halo 6 or anything like that in the comments below, you can of course submit your questions, but I want you to do me a favor, and I want you to tell me about something that you love. Something positive, nothing vulgar, you know, nothing disgusting. Tell me something positive. Tell me a fun story. Tell me a good story, something about you, something that you're passionate about. It can be about something that you love. It can be about something or someone that it can be about something you love. It can be about someone you love or care about. It can be just a nice comment about someone else who's a member of this community. You know, I don't know how all this is going to turn out, but I know that it has to start somewhere. And maybe, just maybe, it can start right here. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I'm sorry for going on a rant. I hope that it was something that maybe you could learn from. Maybe it was something that you could at least agree with, at least in part. And I want you to feed me those comments. I want you to tell me in the comment section below something happy, something positive, something, you know, good about someone or something else. And all you got to do is let me know in the comments below, or you can hit me up on Twitter at MythicTyrant. A link to my Twitter feed can be found in the description below. And of course, as I said earlier, if you want to help support this site so that I don't have to retire it next year, check out my Patreon site. It costs as little as $1 a month. Once we get enough people in, we're going to start having community play dates or community game nights. We're going to start giving out prizes and rewards, and just make it fun for everybody. So check out that site. And also, today we set up a shop. So if you don't want to make a monthly commitment, and maybe you have someone you want to get something cool for Christmas, or maybe something that you want, or the holidays, and I'm sorry, the holiday season in general, you know, any holiday, you know, check out the store. You know, we've got t-shirts and all sorts of cool stuff, and we're going to continue to add to it. And so I'll put that in the description below as well. And if you like this video and you want to see more, don't forget to click that subscribe button for more great content every single day right here on MythicTyrant.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope each and every one of you has an amazing weekend. I'll catch you all right back here next time. And as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.